The next step once you get your oxygen tank set up is to connect it to your ozone generator. Today I'm going to be using the 870 tank exclusively because it's a smaller tank, so it's a little bit easier to use for while we're doing the videos. But again, remember, it's identical between this and using the 540 tank once you get it on there. So we need to connect the oxygen tank to the ozone generator, right? So the first thing we do is we put our silicone tubing right onto the barb outlet of the oxygen tank, and then the other side of the silicone tubing will go to the ozone generator. So you'll see on your generator, if you have the 3.0, and the setup is going to be pretty much the same between the generators, but there'll be an oxygen inlet, and there's one on the other side that looks pretty similar, right? But that says ozone destruct or O3 destruct, and you don't want to put it on there. The reason is because that is a destruct, so that is not actually going to create ozone for us. The times that we use that is if we have excess ozone and we want it going into there instead of the room air. But we're going to put it on the oxygen inlet side, and it just fits right over the port there. After that, you're going to go ahead and plug in your ozone generator. If you've ever used an electronic in your life, this should be super easy. You just plug it in. There's something in the back, and then plug it into your electrical outlet. All right, so we have our oxygen tank set up. We have the silicone tubing connected to the ozone generator, and then we have our ozone generator plugged in. This means we're ready to go. But first, before we get into the different protocols, rectal, vaginal, all that stuff, I'm going to show you how to calculate a dose of ozone. So you don't necessarily have to understand all this. I mean, if you're not super interested, you can just skip down to the protocol that you're interested in because it tells you what setting to do. But I want to tell you just so that you are aware of how you actually calculate a dose of ozone. So when it comes to ozone therapy, there's two things that are taken into account for calculating a dose. There's the concentration or the strength of the ozone gas itself, and then there is the volume. That's just how much gas there actually is. To calculate a dose of ozone, all you have to do is multiply the concentration by the volume to get your total dose. So for example, if I have a concentration of 20 gamma, that's how strong the ozone is, right? And it can go anywhere from 1 to 100 typically. On this ozone generator, we have between 8 and 73, which is perfect for all the home applications, but you just would take your concentration, you'd multiply it by your volume, and let's say we had 20 gamma, that's what we call it, or micrograms per milliliter, that's the strength, and then we have 30 ml, that's the volume, right? So you can see that this is the volume of gas, but it doesn't necessarily tell you how strong the ozone gas in there is. That's why we need the concentration. So we multiply those two together, 20 times 30 equals 600 micrograms. So that would be your total dose. So if you're doing, let's say, 20 gamma at 10 ml, which now I have less in here of volume, but the same concentration, that'd be a total dose of 200 micrograms. And you can kind of play numbers games with that a little bit, right? Because the dose is kind of the important part. So let's say you had, now instead of 20 gamma, we put that down to 10, but we increased our volume to 20 ml. So now we have 10 gamma, 20 ml, and the total dose is the same because it's still 200 micrograms. So you can kind of change some stuff around just based on your knowledge with that, but that's how you calculate a dose of ozone. You just multiply the strength of the ozone, the concentration, by the volume to get the micrograms. On this ozone generator, you're going to see a chart. So there's two things on here. On the right side, these are different settings. And it depends on your ozone generator. This is the one that almost everybody uses, but if you have like the Stratus 2.0 or the Cumulus, you'll notice the settings are a little bit different, but the idea is the exact same. So these settings are going to correspond with what's on the regulator. So settings 1 through 11 here, and there's settings 1 through 11 on the regulator. On the other side of this chart, you're going to have the concentration. So let's say I set it to setting 8. If I go over here, that means I have a concentration of 43. So that's how strong the ozone is. And this is important because sometimes for like a rectal insufflation, you might start off at 10 gamma, 20 gamma, and then work your way up to 40. So the concentration does make a difference. But that's how you get the concentration, is by setting the regulator here. So the flow of the oxygen determines how strong the ozone is going to be. So now I'm just going to give an example with my syringe, and then we'll get into the protocols. So if I want to put an accessory on here, let's go through all the steps that need to happen for us to make ozone. So I put my syringe right onto what's called a lure lock port. A lure lock is just kind of this little screw type fitting that everything is going to use. So it's just really an easy connection port essentially. So I screw on my syringe, I turn on my ozone generator, and let's say, for example, I want a concentration of 31. So I say I want 31 gamma or micrograms per milliliter. I go over here and I see that that corresponds with setting 6 on the regulator. So then I'm going to go over to my regulator and I'm going to click it up to 6. So now you'll notice that the syringe is starting to fill. And the reason I'm showing you this is just to show you the process of making ozone, and that it's pretty much all contingent on having your generator on and having gas coming out of the oxygen tank. Once I have the amount that I want, I just flip this back to 0. I can turn off my generator. And now I have a syringe that is full of ozone. If you're ever using something like this that's not capped, you always want to hold it up because ozone is more dense than air. So if I put it this way, it's going to start falling out. So if you have something that's not capped, just hold it this way. And it's very, very potent. Like I said before, ozone is one of the most detectable molecules by smell, so you'll be able to smell it in extremely small doses. But I'm not very neurotic about it. I've worked with it for a long time, so I'm not worried about that. I'm just going to push it out. You could push it into a destruct if you would rather, which neutralizes the ozone back into oxygen. So that's kind of the basic setup. Let's get into the actual protocols. Again, I just want to mention that there will come with your kit a protocol guide that looks like this. And it lays out just all the different things that you have to do, some precautions for each therapy, how much dosing, frequency, all of that stuff. So if you miss something in this video or don't remember it, the easiest way is just to refer to this protocol guide that's going to show you exactly what to do.